Scout salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ready to? If you join me in the Scout oath and law. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. The Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Thank you.
Okay, I'll share my screen and Mr. Hanson, you can get started.
Sure, thank you, Steve. I think you can go right to the second slide. Yeah. So as John Bowe noted a few minutes ago, tonight is the anniversary of Boy Scouts of America, February 8th, 1910 to now, 114 years. Steve, I think you have some information about the upcoming events, and can you tell us how we can register for these things?
Yes, Ron, thank you. So several important dates to put on your calendar. We have our annual meeting and recognition dinner coming up on April 8th, which is a Monday night. It'll take place at the First Baptist Church in Arlington on Massachusetts Ave. And you can register. I believe the cost for the dinner is $20. And you can go on to the council website, scoutspirit.org, navigate to the Sons of Liberty district page, and the upcoming events are listed first on the page, and there's an active link to go to a jot form and fill out the registration and make payment. Then in May, Thursday, May 9th, will be our district program kickoff. That's the second Thursday of the month. So in lieu of Roundtable, we'll be meeting in person, but we're going to run it as a hybrid. So there'll be a Zoom live streamed onto Facebook, and you'd be able to participate that way, but we'll be there in person. And there's also a link to sign up for that on the district page of the council website. And then for the first time in a number of years, we're presenting an introduction to outdoor leader skills on June 8 and 9 at New England Base Camp at Camp Sayre. And this is required training for adult leaders at the troop level. We highly encourage you to take it if you haven't before. It's not exclusive to Scoutmasters and Assistant Scoutmasters. Any registered adult can take it, and it's a good idea to do that so you can serve as a backup for the Scoutmaster and understand, the skill sets that are required. And you also maybe can learn something to pass on to the Scouts. And the registration for that is $40. Registration is also live. There is a link to registration from the same district page on the council website, but it's not a jot form. It takes you to the training page of the council website, and then the link to register is there. Perhaps Mr. McConey Joe McConey is our awards chairman this year. Joe, anything you'd like to say about recognition awards that our friends should keep in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. At the recognition dinner, we always recognize fellow Scouters, and this year will not be any exception. We will be presenting District Award of Merit, the Charles Nason Award. New this year is it is called the let me pull up Scouting Family Award. So that is to recognize families that have been involved in scouting, could be multi-generational. So there's that. There's also Outstanding Scouter Award. So I would ask leaders to take a look around their units and see who is deserving in their unit. It doesn't even have to be their unit. It could be leaders that you know from within your community. We would ask that nominations are received by March 1st. The forms are on the district website. An email just went out the beginning of this week, and we will continue to remind leaders and encourage leaders to nominate their fellow scouters. And I encourage everyone to think about it and nominate a deserving individual.
Thank you, Joe. And Joe Curran, as district training chair, you want to say a word or two about the IOLS course?
I have something about the IOLS course or the recognition dinner, because we are also giving away Scouters Training Awards and Scouters Keys there. So if you or someone in your unit has completed either the Scouters Training Award, the Den Leader Training Award, or the Scouters Key, let me know, soladvancementchair@gmail.com, so that they can be recognized for their service. But you had a question about IOLS?
Yeah, that too.
What about it?
Tell us about it, Joe.
Introduction to outdoor leadership skills, like Mr. Sakuki had said. Just 1 second.
I hope I get to go to that course.
Thank you. We'll be on the weekend of the 8th of June, June 8th and 9th. We expect to get you out of there pretty early on the 9th. But it is required training to be a trained leader with the trained patch if you are a scoutmaster or assistant scoutmaster, but otherwise is a great opportunity to learn the outdoor skills that we expect scoutmasters and assistant scoutmasters to have. So if that is your current role or a role you're looking for in the future, or if you just want to understand what people in those roles are doing, IOLS is for you. And they can go to the council website, and that's where the job form is, right, Steve?
Yes, yeah. And actually, that's a great point, because, like, for example, if you're the committee chair, you should know what the Scoutmaster's job is, and you can learn by what that job is by doing IOLS.
Absolutely.
So very good. Moving along, we have commissioners.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Hey, real quick. Also, I just want to throw out so people are aware. We'll also be presenting any veterans awards as well. So keep that in mind at the recognition dinner. I believe that paperwork goes to you, Steve.
Well, actually, the adult service veteran service awards, number of years of service for adults, goes to the council, to Mr. Pleva,
Okay.
for approval. But I need to know about it so that we can, me and Joe McConey and Joe Curran need to know, so we can include you in the recognition that night. And don't forget, you can. The rules say to include your youth service. So if you were registered as a Cub Scout or a Scout or a venture, well, not venture probably, but an Explorer, for example, Sea Scout, when you were a kid, those years count in addition to your adult years of service for recognition. Okay.
Just I'm sorry, real quick, send nomination awards to, it's soldistrictawards@gmail. So we'll keep that email address from year to year to make it easier for leaders, so it will be consistent.
Joe, could you type that into the chat, please, so that people can grab it from there? That would be helpful.
Great. Mr. Pleasant, do you have anything you want to tell us? Put you in the program now.
Sure. And good evening, everybody. Great to see everyone. Let me start off with charters. And usually this time of year, I'm begging and pleading and hoping that people will get started and get everything into the office. I have much happier news. First off, at the council level, we've processed almost 210 of our 284 charters already to date. We're well over 100 charters ahead of pace of where we normally are at this date and time. In previous years, and Sons of Liberty is doing their part to lead the way with that. I believe there's only 5 more charters left to be finished, and they're in a couple of categories. You've got 2 that are deemed clean and good to go and just have to pay their invoices online. That's PAC 306 and PAC 416. We've got 2 that are at the office being reviewed as we speak, so they very well could be good to go, but they just need to have the fine-tooth comb gone over them first. That's PAC 30 and PAC 377. And then I guess the only one of concern, and even that isn't super horrible, it's PAC 609. They've started the process but haven't submitted it yet. So John Bowl, if you can help move them along, that'd be fantastic.
That's why he disappeared.
Oh,
He didn't
maybe
want to
that's
have to answer questions.
Actually, I am the one that's trying to do that.
Okay.
I've been waiting for our change to charter being through the Friends of Base Camp. And just yesterday, day before, I got an email from somebody I can't remember.
Denise or Marion. Yeah,
It wasn't Marion, it was
it must be Denise then, probably.
Denise,
Yep.
saying they had not processed that for what, I didn't give a reason, but because it wasn't processed by a certain time, I have to basically get the pastor to sign, even though he said he would not sign for us for this year. Basically, I had to do it as if we are not moving. But at our committee meeting last night, we agreed for the PAC to move to the First Baptist Church. They're willing to accept us. There's already a troop there, 603. So we will put 609 into the freezer and reconstitute ourselves as 603.
Okay.
This is in Malden?
In Malden. That will require a new unit application, I believe. So
Let me talk to Denise and Marion about that tomorrow, just to what makes the most sense timing wise
yeah,
of push it, and we can talk offline on how to accomplish it. I think it's going to be find a way to push it through as 609 and then flip everything over once it's on the books, but we don't have to chew up time right now talking.
okay, I
talking
got
the
an
logistics.
email today saying that one of the new kids, his father was not able to even get to a place on the website to join, to register.
Right. Yep.
Because-
All of the unprocessed charters are in that state. They technically don't exist online, so there's no opportunity for that.
That's right. Okay.
But as a whole, the district is doing very well. So I want to thank everybody for their parts that they've played of pushing and cajoling and shoving and whatever it's done to make it happen. I do think the moving to everybody online registration has helped the process considerably. Often the charters that come into the office are missing kids, missing adults, and they're waiting for applications, or they turn in the adult applications without all the pieces that we need. But the online process, make sure everybody's in quickly, make sure everything's done correctly. There is no submitting it without a query, submitting it without a disclosure being done, and all that sort of stuff. So great job, everybody. Thank you for your help with that. Starting on March 1st, the approval process for the adult registrations will change just a little bit. And basically the change is until the national background check has been completed, that adult registration will not be processed or considered live. So someone will sign up online. They'll get a note saying your application is pending. That pending notification will also go to the unit key 3, so the unit is aware. All right, so Joe just signed up to be a den leader. He can't start yet until he gets approved. We've got it. We're looking at he's in a pending state, and as soon as that gets the check is done, one of two messages will go out as, hey, you're good to go, or hey, the council needs to chat with you. And so that'll just be depending on however the background check shakes out. So that's going into effect starting in March. The other thing in March is the $25 joining fee for new scouts is no longer going to be collected. So that is the thing of the past. They had originally announced a $5 increase in youth and adults. So 85 for scouts, 65 for adults for March 1st. They are delaying that increase till April 1st. So there's a 30-day extra grace period on that rate increase. The new Cub Scout program is the rollout is beginning slowly but surely. It's been a calculated and kind of timed release. The idea is they don't want people to jump to the new program midstream. They want everybody to finish up whatever rank they're currently working on, and then in June 1st, now you can start to work on your next year's ranks and such. The programs are all going to be a lot more consistent, a lot more simpler, a lot more streamlined. In the current version, we have some ranks that have a dozen achievements to work on, and then other ranks work on 7. And we have some ranks that have multiple first aid requirements, and other ranks don't do any kind of requirement for first aid. So everybody's going to have the same number of achievements to do. Everybody's going to have some kind of an outdoor component, some kind of a citizenship component, some kind of a first aid component. Everybody will be having the same kind of thing, still in the age appropriate facets of each of those ranks. So the wolves will work on their second grade appropriate stuff and not worry about the 5th grade stuff and that sort of thing. The Weeblo Arrow of Light there's a definite separation. 4th grade is Weeblos, 5th grade is Arrow of Light, 2 separate ranks, and not necessarily that 18-month progression that it used to be. So that'll be probably one of the bigger changes or tweaks. And then I'd say the other thing is for the Bobcat, every rank will have a Bobcat component, an activity loop to work on, but again, age appropriate on that. So in the way it currently is, if you joined as a 3rd grader, you're doing the same Bobcat requirements that a Tiger through Arrow of Light all work on the same 4 or 5 different things there. So those are some of the things to kind of look forward to.
John, is the Arrow of Light program still expected to end a little early so that they can cross over to a troop at roughly the same time?
I think so. I know one of the first requirements that they're encouraged to do is to visit a troop right when they start out the year, and not necessarily wait until April, May, June to get that requirement or that piece done. It's one of the earlier. It might even be their Bobcat requirement is to visit a troop. Yeah, I haven't seen all of the specific requirements, so I don't know whether it's a time finished type of thing on that or not yet. We're just starting to get that information so that the Cub Day camps can plan their stuff accordingly, and then we will redo all of our den kits that packs and dens can check out, so that it's all appropriate to the different requirements for the new requirements for Cub Scouts. And I think the only other event that I'll share for now is New England Base Camp is holding an outdoor conference on Sunday, May 5th. And it's open to any adults, any adult leaders. It's not necessarily a specific training for anything, just Scouts BSA, just venturing. Day of learning and networking, learning about a wide range of outdoor education topics. And there should be I think there's an article in this coming tomorrow's newsletter, so you should see more information about that. But even older scouts are probably appropriate for them to attend. So it's just kind of more outdoorish type resources and opportunities and that sort of thing. It's not a formal training, but I guess a resource expo of sorts is probably the best way to think about it. So if you get a chance to check that out, I'd say that's a good thing to do.
We had,
What day is it? Sorry.
we've got a
Guys-
question from the floor from David Dzinski. David, go ahead.
I have two questions for Mr. Pleva, but the first one is about what he just talked about with Cub Scouts.
Yep.
What I don't like about this new rollout of the Cub Scouts is how it's so segregated by age. How does this take into account kids who've been held back or are old for their grade? And I'm asking in self-interest because my third grader is almost 10, and I don't want him to start Scouts at 12. I want him to finish next year. So what options do I have?
So it's always been kind of age appropriate, segregated by rank anyways. So that isn't new news. And the guidance we do is, whatever the parent feels is most appropriate and comfortable for the scout, that's where you have that leeway when the scouts have been held back to either keep them on track with what grade they would have been in, or if they think that it's better for them to hang back an extra year, they're welcome to go that route as too. So there's still that flexibility for the parent to kind of say, I know my kid was held back a year, but I'm going to keep him in the third grade track, even though he's repeating second grade, as an example.
And we just do that on the pack level and in Scout Book?
Yep.
Thanks.
All set, David?
That's it for that topic. Thank you. Other people, I don't want to interrupt other people.
Were there other questions from the floor? No? Okay.
Someone was asking about the date. Was clarification on the date. That outdoor conference is Sunday, May 5th. I don't think I have the exact time of that, but again, there'll be a article in the newsletter tomorrow that has the exact timing of it. So it's a pretty full day event though.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been asked to include this to remind Scout leaders that if you have Scouts who are interested in participating in NYLT on the staff, there will be interviews February 21st, 10 to 2 at base camp. I've had Scouts who have been both attendees of this program and staff members of this program, and it's valuable for all hands. If you have a Scout who wants to further develop their leadership skills, participating in a training staff opportunity is a great opportunity for them. So,
Just
okay.
one quick note on that. It's not just for Scouts who have first class, but also Ventures and Sea Scouts as well. Obviously, the staff is for people who've completed that, but if there are Ventures or Sea Scouts.
An age criterion, is that it?
My understanding with NYLT is that Ventures and Sea Scouts do not need to meet any rank requirement because they're already at least 14 or 13 and a half and have completed 8th grade.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Thanks for the clarification. Okay.
Hey, quick question on NYLT. Since you're on the subject, is the council doing ground sea course this year?
Yep. Sorry about that. I believe that is the same week they did it last year, the last week of June spilling into July, if I'm not mistaken. I can let me try to confirm that during this meeting and put something in the chat once I find out for sure.
Is Ken Reardon going to do it again this year? Is it?
As far as I know, yeah. If he's not, I think we're in a we're in a bigger problem. I think whether it's happening or not will be more in question. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so our main topic we talked about for tonight is community service. And so what I'd really like to do is get some input from people. What do you do with your unit? What does your troop do? George, you want to kick off? What do you think?
Well, actually, it's funny that you're starting with us because everyone will have something better to say after me. We actually don't have very formal community service. I guess I've been waiting for volunteers to set things up. Sometimes things come just a single item at a time, but we actually don't have much set up, and I would love to have that become a more important part of our program.
Okay, you know, one of the easy, straightforward approach is to talk to your chartered organization. We were sponsored by Our Lady of Grace Church, and we did a spring and fall cleanup every year. We also would periodically get called out in a snowstorm to shovel the sidewalks and pathways around the church before the Saturday Mass. So that's one, straightforward way to, if you want to start a program, to work with your charter organization. The one negative thing that happened in our snow shoveling program was that the pastor was the one who started the snowball fight, not a Boy Scout.
Who won?
He did, of course.
I
He
guess,
had friends in high places.
Right.
Well, I'll chime in because for a number of years now, I think it's been a good 10 years or so. When did we start it? Sometime around 2017, I think. We've been doing a leaf raking community service for senior citizens in Waltham, Troop 248. And we combine it with a fundraiser. It's sort of when we first started it, we called it Pay It Forward. And what we do is we contact the Elder Affairs Department in the city, and we ask them for names of seniors who they, through their relationships know are going to need help raking leaves in their yard, in the fall. And we try to schedule the timing because the city has a vacuum service for leaves at the curbside. So we try to time it with that. But if not, then we just, use leaf bags and put them on the curb. But depending on the volume of scouts that we have, we make a decision about how many different seniors we could help over, 1 or 2 weekends. And then they give us names and we go out and rake the leaves, but we send letters out to businesses in the community in Waltham and ask them to donations to the troop because we're such wonderful people doing this great community service for the seniors. And we try to give them, name recognition as supporters through our Facebook page and a sandwich board sign that we put out on the sidewalk.
John, you gotta watch this.
And any ideas that we can think of in terms of ways to recognize them, but it's a good sort of three-way relationship with the scouts helping the seniors and in the community and the donors feeling good about being connected with that, even just through donating money. And I'll tell you one thing, it really for the scouts who feel like reluctant, oh, this is just manual labor, and they're really not enthusiastic about it. These seniors, on many occasions, have been overwhelmed emotionally with the idea that young kids are coming to help them rake leaves, and because they're embarrassed, they're old, they don't have the physical strength to rake their leaves. They take pride in their home, and their neighbors are frustrated because their leaves are blowing all over their yards, and that a bunch of teenagers would come and rake their leaves for them. They invite the kids into their house for snacks. We take photos with them, and they're really just so grateful and so demonstrative towards the scouts for that help. It touches the boys. They really feel that they're making a difference in the life of somebody who might as well be their grandparent. It's a wonderful situation when it works out that way.
Yeah, that certainly is a good one. Yeah. We've also, gone trips to visit people in the Veterans Hospital. That's another one. Just the contact to talk to a young person is sometimes very valuable for the program.
I had a service organization reach out to me today, as a matter of fact. They're looking to do a community service project and we're looking for help. They're trying to clean up a park in Malden.
That's great.
The Lions reached out to me. They're trying to do some community service, and they were asking about a scout troop or scout troops that want to come help.
And what town is this, John?
Malden.
Malden. Mhm. What have people other opportunities that they think were kind of unique to their unit?
So for
Christian, yeah,
313
please.
So 313 in Arlington, we had an Eagle Scout a few years back who had done a project with the Council on Aging, putting together buckets and with sand and salt that would be distributed to seniors who requested it through the Council on Aging. And then the troop would refill the bucket as required throughout the winter, collect the buckets in the spring, and then redistribute in the fall. So that was their project, was just sort of getting that up and off the ground, and the troop has maintained it now since then for I think this is our second or third year, I can't remember. We have somewhere around 60 participants, I think, in town who take part. It's really a very, for service hours, it's pretty low key because it doesn't require a lot of time. But it is certainly something that's well appreciated within the town.
Yeah, that scout had a wonderful Eagle project. I remember reviewing that when it came in. Yeah, and I'm glad that you continued that. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Of course, we haven't had too many snowy winters, thank goodness.
It's all because of that Scouts project.
Louis had his hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, please.
All right, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So so we for 7-Eleven, we actually I would say we had two unique opportunities. So last year, you can look into that as well. So we work with Mass Audubon. So they actually manage several parks. We were able to liaise with them. We helped them to clean up the Magazine Beach in Cambridge, and there's also you get to about 45 minutes, 30 minutes to learn from one of their staff on environmental protection, what they do, etc. in one of the centers. So this is actually a very good partnership. I think it's a very good opportunity for Cub Scout. And we this year we are also doing something with one of the senior centers in Quincy. So we plan to have games and some sort of live performance. So that's more of a community service sort of offering that is everyone can look into.
That's great ideas. Louis, thank you for bringing up Mass Audubon, because that's a resource. They always have projects that they want to help with. So that's great. Thank you.
Oh, I just want to mention one more thing. Actually,
yes,
last year as well, we there's a farm in Weston. I forgot the exact name. So you can contact them. So they always need volunteers to help out and work on it's a community farm. It's in Weston. So
is that
sorry?
Is that Drumlin Farm?
It's not. It's
they're in Lincoln.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Drumlin Farm is an Audubon site.
No, it's part of the. It's owned by Weston, in the city of Weston. So, but you get some farming experience. So especially Mass Audubon and the farm in Weston, I think is very aligned with the Scout goal. It's very outdoorsy. You're doing something for the environment, so that's a good opportunity to look into.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
We've got Ken Fung with a hand raised.
Yeah, Ken.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my troop does several community service projects, basically. A couple benefit our charter organization, leaf raking, shoveling walkways, but we also host or help them set up for a annual Christmas event. We also help the town. We have a town, like a town day. It's called the Victorian Fair, and they give us space to set up a booth. In return, we actually help clean up after the entire. We sweep the sidewalks after the event.
That's great. Great, thank you.
Great.
Has anyone ever done anything for like the town's historical association?
Well, there's been Eagle projects in Waltham.
Yeah.
Where one in particular, where they there's sort of an ugly history where they had the Metropolitan State Hospital on one side of Trapella Road and the Fernald Institution on the other. And in the past, those two institutions had very difficult, and ugly situations. And people, forgotten people were just sort of warehoused there. And there are many, I think several dozen, I don't know the exact count, who were buried on the property in unmarked graves. And one of the scouts at 248 did some preliminary work to chart the graves. There were stones in the ground without any names. I think they were numbered. And so he worked to make a simple plot showing where they were. And someone else, I think there might have been another scout from 250 in Waltham that did more research, but city councilors were involved and they really dug into the archives to try to identify them. But the beginning of that work, the Eagle Project, started because the city councilor, the ward councilor that had that territory, was interested in the project, and he somehow made a connection with the scout, and it might have been through the mayor's office to do that preliminary work. So the idea there generally, I think, is it wasn't the historical commission, but it certainly was about history.
About history. Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting thing that's coming up in this discussion, and I'd like John Tumblin to weigh in on this one. We have service projects that a scout has to complete for rank requirement. We have troop service projects. And then John, what happens when it becomes an Eagle project, these kind of things? Can you tell me how to differentiate?
Well, first of all, the Eagle Scout has to run the program. The Eagle Scout candidate runs the project. It's not like, hey, let's get together on Saturday and just go do our own things. He has to come up with the plan and he has to submit it for us to approve. And then he goes back and he organizes and does the work. So it's not like it's just show up and do the work. He's got to have a project plan when he shows up and puts it together.
Is there some confusion in the proposals that get sent to the advancement committee?
Yes, there's quite a bit. Some of them shouldn't come to us at all. They shouldn't get past the troop. I mean, especially like if they benefit scouting. If somebody wants to do something for scouting, that's not an Eagle project. That could be a troop service project or a patrol service project. But
so it's the leadership component is the thing.
The leadership component, and we look for complexity. We don't just look for, I'm going to go move shoes. I'm going to go over to the shoe store and move shoes from point A to point B. They have to have various levels of complexity for it to demonstrate leadership.
Very good. Thank you, John. Appreciate the input. I hope to clarify a lot of things for a lot of people. Okay. Anyone else has any input on community service they want to talk about?
I was just going to say that
Christian, thank you.
Other resources we've used, like our town tree committee, they do a tree planting in the spring, and then they're looking for people to water the plants throughout the year. So we often have we have scouts who volunteer to do that. We do work with various friends of parks groups in town on their cleanups. There's like the reservoir does ones, By Pond does ones. We have things like that we do. And then for our, it's not our chartered organization, but the church where we meet, we help them with the crash setup and take down every year. We help them with a summer picnic they run, and we help them spread mulch in the spring.
That's great. That's great. So it's nice to hear there's all sorts of opportunities out there and very active troop working toward making community service parts of their program. I'd kind of like to wrap up the community service part of the breakout by telling you the story of a Troop 109 service project that went awry. A number of years ago, the parish decided they were going to have a winter carnival. And in the course of this thing, they wanted to have a bonfire in the parking lot. So who do you go to if you want to have a campfire? You go to the Boy Scouts. And then they were going to have a petting zoo. So we cooked up this idea, basically a lashing project to make shelters for the petting zoo animals outside. And this all was going to be perfect timing. On the day of the event, the weather changed from cold and snowy to wet and rainy. So that's okay. We could still make a bonfire for them. We made a bonfire for them. And within 5 minutes of that, the Chelsea Fire Department and the Everett Fire Department showed up in complete force. We had 6 engines on the scene because somebody said the church was on fire. I had planned ahead, and I did have a fire permit from each town, so it didn't turn out that bad. But because of the rain and stuff, the people who had the petting zoo were concerned about their animals. So what do you do with the animals? Well, what we did was we paraded the animals into the church hall and created an enclosure for them in half the church hall. The other half, they had tables set up for the dinner, but we had the petting zoo in the church hall. So that was okay. Some significant cleanup when it was all said and done. And then the grand finale was in the course of the rainstorm, the wind picked up and our last shelter blew down the street. This thing was about 20 feet by 10 feet. So you can have good intentions, but sometimes they're completely out of your control what happens.
Okay. Well,
I see the thing that his hand raised, but also Christian made a comment in the chat. So John, why don't you say what was on your mind, and then Christian, I want you to talk about the comment you put in the chat.
No, well, the thing that Ron didn't bring up is that Our Lady of Grace sits on the Everett-Chelsea line. So when the fire call went to both fire departments, he's right, and they both responded greatly. But it went to both. It's right on the line. You walk in the front door of the hall and you're in Everett. I mean, the front door is in Chelsea, but you walk into the hall and you're in Everett. So that's how that one works. So both cities responded when they got the fire call.
You know, John, I forgot the best part was when we had the power failure and the lights went out in the hall.
Yeah, things are never dull down there. That's for sure.
Christian, you said that there's somebody, a parent in your troop that actually like collects.
Yeah, so we were looking for ways to keep parents engaged with the committee, and so we have a husband and wife team who are our community service representatives on the troop committee, and so they are the ones who sort of keep an eye out in town for different opportunities and bring it to the troop to see if there are things they're interested in. And we found that has been really helpful because it's not that we're sort of trying to find an activity to fit a date, but that we sort of have a better idea of what the range of activities are, and then we can plan them into our schedule that way.
That's great to have somebody out there
Yeah.
who's actively looking, for service projects, because you know, otherwise you're limited in your choices, and you don't, plus, I'm sure they're communicating with people, so there's higher visibility for the troop as part of that process.
Right,
Sounds
service projects make the paper.
They do.
Right. Yeah,
That's
very
the
good.
part we still have to work on.
You know, here's the thing, between the online newspapers, the Patch and Wicked Local, and whatever's left, you know, for the community newspaper company, they don't have the staff to actually write articles. So if you got a parent in the troop or a scout who's a good writer, have them write the story, put a photograph in, you upload it to the Patch and Wicked Local, and you mail it in to the paper, and they'll run it because they're desperate for local news.
Thanks.
But they don't have the resources to send a reporter to do the story. So just write it for them and send it to them, and it'll go online at the very least, and it might actually get into print.
Yeah, that's very good, Steve. Thank you for bringing that up, because we really don't do a good job publicizing ourselves. And the notion of having dedicated committee members to kind of focus on issues like that is really a smart one. Okay, I think we can we move on maybe? Yeah, today, of course, is the anniversary of Scouts BSA in America. There are other ones all around the world. And as you know, this is a famous one, how Scouting got started, July 1907 with the Brownsea Island camp. And then the following January, the actual publication of the first Scout handbook. Many places celebrate February 22nd, what's called Founders Day. Many other, not just in the United Kingdom. And then the parallel to our Scout Sunday is St. George's Day, the Feast of St. George, April 23rd. We talked about the founders of Scouting last year, the ones we all know about. Can you pull ahead, Steve? You know, Baden Powell, Ernest Thompson Seton, and James Carter Beard. And it's interesting when you look at it, how this was a cross-Atlantic endeavor. Powell had his ideas of scouting in the British Army. He then incorporated some of the many ideas that Seton had done in the woodcraft movement, and the sons of Daniel Boone from Beard. But there are two other people I'd like to talk about a little bit on the next slide, because they kind of get lost in that. Oh, three, I'm sorry. This is one of John Tumlin's scouting trivia questions. What is the name of the unknown scout? But famous story of William Boyce, an American publisher, who was lost in a London fog, and he got directions from a lad who was a scout. And the scout did not accept a tip for doing that service because he was doing a good turn. Interestingly, in an office building in Chicago, there's that plaque that's in the middle. That from that site, he started the procedures for organization and incorporation of the Boy Scouts of America. That is still there. You can Google the plaque and get the geographic coordinates of it in Chicago. And then let's go ahead to the two people I wanted to mention. We don't think about James West. James West became the first Chief Scout executive. He served the organization from 1911 to 1943, and his managerial decisions are largely responsible for the organizational scheme that the Scouts still maintain. West was an orphan. He has this, rags to riches kind of story, an orphan who worked his way through law school and eventually got hired and became an executive in the Boy Scout organization. The other person was somebody from Denmark. William Hilcourt was actually a scout in Denmark. He earned the rank of King of Knight Scout, Knight Scout, which was their Eagle equivalent. And he came to America looking for a job. He ran into James West in an elevator and talked himself into a position, which then lasted from 1916, I think, until he finally retired within the ages. I think did V go to Woodbadge with him as Scoutmaster, Steve?
What, no, my
He was
dad
in the first
would badge in the first course in New England,
in New England. Okay,
like 1970, 1969.
so because one of the Scout executives here, a couple of years back, he in fact did take Woodbadge with Bill Hillcourt as the Scoutmaster. Hillcourt essentially set up a demonstration troop in Mendon, New Jersey. And those are the people who are in all the pictures that you see in the old handbooks. Hillcourt wrote handbooks, the field book, the first edition of the field book, and the Scoutmaster Handbook, which was a 2-volume, 1,000-page handbook. And it's quite an amazing book. It was published, I think, in the 1930s, and basically covers everything you would ever want to know to become a Scoutmaster. Okay, now there's another group of people in Scouting that I am. Oh yes, this is we missed because of tonight's date and Roundtable tonight. We missed anyway to bring this up, but you can celebrate Scouting anniversary on February 22nd. It's Baden-Powell's birthday, and of course, people suggest the World Scout Organization, you do good turns, learn a new Scout skill, and go on an outing.
It'd be 167 this year.
Good math, John.
Wow. He must have been pretty old when he was your Scoutmaster then, John, huh?
He was. I made him quit.
You made him quit.
Had to go all the way to Kenya.
That's right.
Hi, Kenya.
Okay. Joe, do you want to take over?
Yes. How do I share my screen? Can someone make me the host to do so?
Yes, I'll stop sharing and I'll make you co-host. All right, here you are.
How's everybody doing today? Everybody staying hydrated? All right, there we go. Right. So. History of Cub Scouting. Everybody can, oh, no, that's not the slideshow yet. Oh, no, there we go. Oh, everybody come back. There we go. We can all see that. The history of Cub Scouting is what we're going to talk about today. So Scouting has some founders, and they all have one weird thing in common. Founder of Scouting, Ron stole my thunder, Lord Robert Baden-Powell. What about the Girl Guides? Does anyone know who the founder of the Girl Guides was? That's right, Olave Baden-Powell, Robert's wife. And of course, Sea Scouting, founding a few years later, was founded by anybody?
His brother.
Warrington Baden-Powell, his older brother and naval officer. But what about Cub Scouts? Who are the founders of Cub Scouts?
Roger,
what was that, Steve? I want to talk to you about 3 main people here. Baden-Powell, Rudyard Kipling, and James E. West, with a secret surprise person later. So Baden-Powell had an issue in 1916. Scouting was super fun, but you had to be 12. And kids, just like you are dealing with, I brought my 4-year-old to a den meeting yesterday. It does not matter how young the program is for. There will be kids too young for it who want to join. Baden-Powell did not like the idea of setting up sort of like a junior branch or what have you, but wanted a distinct program. So on January 21st, January 24th, rather, 1916, he started the first Wolf Cubs, they were called at the time in Britain. And the Wolf Cubs handbook came out on December 16th that year. But Baden-Powell was running the whole Scout Association, which was really all of international scouting and British scouting at the same time. So he turned to Vera Barclay, one of the women founders of scouting that we never get to hear about. She was a pioneer, author, adventurer. She was one of these Victorian women who's so rich they don't need to do anything besides go have fun. And she decided to have fun by going out in the woods. BP pegged her to be the to sort of lead Cub Scouting while he dealt with the older boys. She's the first international volunteer to be a woman in scouting. Of course, Olive Baden-Powell had done the Girl Guides things, but when it comes to what we consider scouting nowadays, first one, second female recipient of the Silver Wolf given by the chief scout Baden-Powell at the time, the first one to his wife because worldwide sorts there. And she also organized the first French wood badge course because she moved around to France after her time in England. But she was the driving force behind British scouting, British Cub Scouting specifically. And this would have been for 8 to 11 at the time. Rudyard Kipling, he wrote The Jungle Book in 1894. But before that, about 20 years before that, he met Baden-Powell when they were both in India. Kipling was a young reporter and Baden-Powell he's British, so a lieutenant in Her Majesty's Army. But they became lifelong friends and began to correspond back and forth. So when Baden-Powell said, I want this new program, but we're still doing a lot of military stuff. We're called scouts, just like, Army scouts. What can I do? I'll use the Jungle Book. So there's a lot of influences in the Cub program, less and less over time. I'm to understand there are almost none left in British cubbing. But things like Akela, Baloo, the fact that it's called the Pack, the old law of the Pack, the fact that it's called the Den, the Grand Howl, those sort of den shears, wolf, bear, lion, tiger as ranks, all of those come directly from the Jungle Book. There used to be more, but that's all more or less in Britain. James E. West, we heard about him, first Chief Scout executive. He had the same problem as Baden-Powell. You can never make it too young, and a lot of troops had sort of junior branches, cadet branches, they called them. It was never an organized program, but James E. West saw this as a problem. He did not want younger and younger kids to be in Boy Scouting proper. He would rather, he thought that would draw kids away from traditional scouting. This is not a metaphor for older scouts that you deal with who might want to try venturing, getting more active in the Order of the Arrow, going to NYLT staff or Sea Scouting. This is not about how they will take, how James E. West was wrong about younger kids. Is not about how you would be wrong if you thought that those programs would take kids away from your troop. But he suggested instead that Emerson Brooks' organization, the Boy Rangers of America, which served 8 to 12-year-olds, would be a great place for these young kids to be. So let's talk a little bit about the Boy Rangers of America. It was founded exactly 3 years before British Cubbing. It actually had some overlap with Boy Scouts before sort of the Boy Scouts of America won. It was for ages 8 to 15. And the culture and traditions are a lot more like Ernest Thompson Seton's Woodcraft Indians. You could see the ranks there. This is getting recorded, so I'm not reading them out loud. But it had a very native feel to it. A lot of that stuff was sort of taken. But when Cub Scouts started in the 1930s, most Boy Rangers of America lodges, as they were called, merged with Cub Scout packs. So this was sort of the holding place. They were their own separate organization, not a program of the Boy Scouts of America, but it's sort of impossible to tell the story of cubbing without talking about the Boy Rangers. I do want to point out these are not the same Boy Rangers from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That is a different organization that is entirely fictional because Jimmy Stewart was not part of this group. So the first Cub Scout leaders, who were they? Den Chiefs. That's right. As you can see from the cord on this gentleman's right shoulder, he is a Den Chief, and he's also talking to some Cub Scouts. So Den Chiefs, the first Cub Scout dens were the first organized groups of Cub Scouts. And Cub Scouting, when it first started, was a program of the troop. The first trials happened in 1928, and it was like sort of 2-year trial period before you realized having this as being a entirely youth-run program isn't working. It's sort of, we're not covering all our bases. Our chartered partners don't like it. So the first men volunteers, as opposed to boys, in 1930 started as these packs with Cub Masters starting getting chartered. But the first adults were not these Cub Masters. They were Den Mothers. Again, talking about the history of women in our organization. It's actually very interesting, the Den Mother role. There was never a Den Mother's handbook put out, but I did find from the 1940s 2 different books full of recipes for Den Mothers that take roughly how long a Den meeting should take, so that right after the Den Chief is done teaching their Den meeting, there'd be a nice, delicious cake or pudding or what have you for them. But Den Mothers were the first women volunteers in our organization, and were good for that. Over time, their role slowly, very slowly evolved into Den leaders as we know them. There was a very short period of time where female Den leaders were called Den mothers and male Den leaders were called Den leaders. It was always true that Den leaders for Webelos dens were men. I actually have a handbook from the 50s that says this is like a selling point. Here's why you want to become a Webelos scout. You'll get to hang out with a man this time. Of course, my scoutmaster was a woman and she did a great job. So I don't think that made a lot of sense, but it did at the time. So some changes to the program. We've always had wolves and bears. When it started, we also had lions. The Bobcat badge was introduced in 1938. This was the joining requirement. It changed to the Bobcat badge around 1950. There's different numbers. And it became, instead of a badge and a rank, a adventure starting July 1st of this year. So it's not just the history, but also the future of Cub Scouting. The Webelos program for 10-and-a-half-year-olds begins in 1941. It gets expanded into a 2-year program that we knew all the way until July of this year in 1986. 1982, we see Tiger Scouts, the first, or Tiger Cubs, the first time that we have a program for first graders. But it is a program of the pack. They are not members of the pack until, I cannot believe this, 2001 did Tigers finally become part of the pack, invited to pack meetings and stuff. Lions, like I said, was the rank between Bear and Webelos from 1941 to 1967. And it became our kindergarten program that many of you have in your packs in 2018. And the most recent change, because it hasn't even happened yet, is Arrow of Lights become their own rank, their own den, their own handbook, their own everything, starting in July of this year. So does
that mean a kid can just walk into Cub Scouts and just go into the Arrow of Light program at the right age?
That is my understanding. So instead of just being able to walk into Webelos at the right age, like that was always a problem. You don't need to be a wolf in order to earn your Arrow of Light. But that is my understanding. I don't know that much about the new changes. I'm sure I will have to learn them in my role as a commissioner. But right now, my understanding is that Arrow of Light is just the, oh God, what year would that be? Was that 5th grade? That year until transition. So the Cub Scout program has changed a lot. Very recently, we got rid of the law of the pack. We got rid of the Cub Scout promise in favor of the Scout Oath and Law. That's something the Brits did decades ago. So we're sort of catching up with them. But Cub Scouting history is something we don't talk about a lot because there are very, very few 11-year-olds or younger interested in it. But it is a very interesting program, especially given the participation of women in the program, because we talk about, Greenbar Bell and we talk about Ernest Thompson Seton, but there were women making sure that this program worked decades and decades and decades ago. And hopefully we are able to recognize them just in this brief history. So unless there are any questions, I will stop sharing, where as soon as I find that button, there it is.
Joe, that you brought up a very interesting question. Having looked back at Scout handbooks, I can literally see in the first edition of the Boy Scout handbook many of the requirements that are in the current edition of the Boy Scout handbook. The skills that we teach have just followed through from year one of the program to 114. I wonder why the Cubs have always been kind of churning like that.
I would say that it has a lot to do with our relationship with adolescence. By our, I mean society's relationship to adolescence. Baden-Powell really did something weird by saying that 13-year-olds could be leaders of young men. But that was sort of ingrained in the program from the very start. With Cubs, one of their aims of Cub Scouting, even to this very day, is preparation for Scouts BSA. And given that, how do we entertain these kids? How do we teach them things and values? I think it changes just how we treat 8-year-olds, as well as we get more and more data, and as it becomes more and more the case that so much of our membership is, they're going to wear blue shirts and we're never going to get to see them in tan. So I think that has a lot of changes to it in that. So I do want to apologize to everyone if you have any other questions, but it is bedtime. So if you'll excuse me, I'm going to get these young ones off to sleep. Good night.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's great. Great presentation. Thank you. Okay, Steve, can we just put one more slide up from the end of mine?
Absolutely. You've got 2 slides, Ron, I think.
I know, I'm sorry. I just want to remind everybody that we've got something very interesting happening very soon. April 8th, there's going to be a solar eclipse. And it's not a total eclipse in Boston, but it's pretty close. About 93% of the sun will be covered by the moon. It's be going on most of the afternoon of April 8th. If you go to the next slide, the next one. There's a website called timeanddate.com. You can look up the path of the eclipse. You can see I've got it plotted there for Boston, showing you what the totality of the eclipse will be. I warn you, though, please be careful with this thing. Don't look directly at the sun. I mean, I know that sounds like something that's common sense, but I've actually seen patients who have burns on their retina caused by solar gazing. Make a pinhole projector. It's a very simple device which will let you watch this thing safely, or several people at once watch safely. If you do get
there's an award for this. They came up with there's an award that if you go through the requirements.
The patch is shown on that previous slide. Yeah, I was going to mention that, John. Thank you.
Sorry, Ron. Go ahead.
But yeah, there it is. There's some straightforward requirements. I think one of them is to make a pinhole projector to view the eclipse. And I guess the cool thing about the patch, as you can see, it glows in the dark. The right-hand panel there. If you do decide to look at the eclipse, get glasses, safety glasses that meet the ISO standard. There's a link there to show you how to check that out for your safety. Okay.
So and if you're good to me, I'll bring the sun back.
Okay.
And you can tell us all about
that.
You can tell us all about it when you come to the district annual meeting that evening.
Do a video of it.
April 8th, it's the same day.
That's right. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, thank you, folks. That's kind of what we had planned for you for this evening. Any questions or comments people want to bring up?
If I might chime in. I'm
Please.
sorry for being late. I didn't need to be here a little bit earlier. It sounds like you guys are already talking about some of it, so I don't need to cover quite as much there. My name's Jake Westerman. I think a lot of you know me. I've been around a little bit, but this summer I'll be the course director for the MLT course being put on by our council up at TL Store the July 4th week. And I'm working my way around to the different roundtables, and I wanted to make sure I reach you all and put out there that we are still looking for staff. This is the first time our council has held a National Youth Leadership Training course sometime. So if you have youth that have gone out of council before, we're interested in having them. If you have youth that are phenomenal leaders and have never been to MRLT, definitely have them reach out. And thank you for putting that slide back up there again. The date's actually off because that's still the January date, but it will be that February weekend. And we're getting that corrected here. And they do not have to wait. They can reach out to me sooner. And we will also, we're still looking for participants as well. It's really a phenomenal course. It sets them in the right place to be. My vision is that we really enable all of the youth in our council to be better leaders and citizens through the outdoors and other, interesting experiences that they can gain through the scouting program. I want to make sure we afford that to them. And I know a lot of you, from my time in scouting as a youth and an adult, and I'm sure you're all in agreement and can help me reach this vision. I'd also like to mention, and I think you guys already covered it again, much like MLT, the Wood Badge program our council's putting on. Jerry Cross is going to be the course director for that program, and that's running 2 weekends, April and May, at TL Store again. It's sure to be a fantastic course. We have a lot of folks from our council that have been in and around Wood Badge for a while, and folks from outside that I've gotten the chance to meet, and they're really phenomenal. Most of you are Wood Badge trained already. I know that, but you should also know, that helps your leaders become better so that they can come back and be excited about scouts and really help your units, both Cub packs and scout troops alike. I really want to just remind you all about that, and feel free to reach out to myself or Jerry Cross, personally, phone, Facebook, Instagram, email, whatever. We're happy to answer questions, and we're really looking forward to both these programs. We really put a lot of effort into it so far, and we're looking forward to having a good time.
Thank you, Jacob. Could you put a contact information in the chat so people can get access?
Yes, I can.
Thanks. Okay.
So we've come to the end of another roundtable. Very good. Remember that the next April, it's February, March, the roundtable will be, what's the date for the March roundtable? Second Thursday, March 14th.
One day
Should be the
earlier.
same.
I think we should go on St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, fortunately not. We need to be sober for roundtable, but you can celebrate the next day. Ron, what's the preview on our topics for the next round?
No, I don't have that right accessible. Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, well, we'll be talking scouting, that you can be assured.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And thank you to all of you who took your time to come tonight. Jacob's put the Wood Badge information in the chat, so if you want to grab that before we exit. Mr. Bowl, do you have any particular farewell message you'd like to share?
Sure. After I cut myself off at the beginning of the meeting, I wanted to remind people that this is the month where we celebrate two birthdays as one, actually, President's Day. But George Washington and Abraham Lincoln were some of our early and greatest leaders. And we should think of them when we pledge our allegiance to our flag. You may want to remind people if you've got any meetings soon, since today's the actual anniversary, but I believe the president's birthdays are the 12th and the 20th or 22nd. 22nd, 12 and 22. Yeah, that's what I remember from as a kid. So that within that range, you can still call attention to the fact that those were some of our great leaders, and just looking at the flag, you can try to remember them. You can use that as your opening ceremony, as I tried to do, but that is a significant part of the year and significant dates to actually keep in mind, other than this current stuff that is not come to the same level as those two guys. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for participating in the roundtable, not just showing up as a face on the screen. And thank you for everything you do for our scouts and families and communities.
All right, everybody, with that, we will stop.
Good night, everybody.
And have a good evening. Just a last note, you can find recordings of previous roundtables on our YouTube channel. Just search YouTube for Sons of Liberty District. But there's also a link in the email invitation you received for tonight. So thank you. And with that, good night, and we'll see you next month.